Creation Myths from Around the World, Part 1. From the beginning of time, or since the cognitive revolution, human thought and beliefs have centered around four questions. Who are we? Where did we come from? What is our purpose? And what happens to us after we die? To answer these questions, as well as many other things about the world around them, mankind created religions and stories as a way to explain and rationalize where things come from and why things happen. One of the most important aspects of religions tends to be the origin story of the world and how the earth, sea, sky, land, and humans themselves came to be. And in this video, we'll be discussing the creation stories of the Sumerians, the Greeks, the Romans, and the Egyptians. Also, look out for the partner video, which will be talking about what these civilizations thought would happen to humans after death. The Sumerians. Unfortunately, some of the tablets about Sumerian mythology are lost to time, making some stories incomplete. Sadly, this includes the beginning of their creation myth. It's also important to note that the stories we do have from the Sumerians have been heavily influenced by later Mesopotamian people, as the older stories are again lost to time. The following creation stories gather from what we know about the Sumerian religion from the surviving portions of their tablets and their oral traditions. In the beginning, Namu, the primordial waters, gave birth to Anki, who was the manifestation of the universe. Anki then gave birth to Enlil, who represented air. Enlil then separated his parents into An, the father sky, and Ki, the mother earth. Enlil and Ki then formed to produce Enki, the god of water. Enki gathered part of the primordial sea and used it to create the Tigris and Euphrates rivers on earth. Enki also created vegetation, fertile soil, and the animals on the land and the sea. Enki was responsible for making humans from clay to cultivate the ground, care for flocks of animals, and perpetuate the worship of the gods. Cities were then built, and a kingship was established on earth. The next portion of the tablet is missing, unfortunately, but then the story picks up with the gods sending a flood to wipe out humanity because they were displeased with them. But Enki did not agree with this decision and warned Ziyusudra, a man known for his humility and obedience. Ziyusudra did as Enki commanded and built a huge boat where he safely rode out the flood. Afterwards, he sacrificed an ox and a sheep and submitted before the gods An and Enlil. As a reward for living a godly life, he was given immortality and sent to live in the land of Dilmun, while his offspring populated the lands between the Euphrates and Tigris rivers. What most people find interesting about the Sumerian creation myth is that their flood story is extremely similar to the Noah and the Great Flood story found in Abrahamic faiths, leading many to believe that the same aspects of early Abrahamic faiths were heavily influenced by the Sumerians, which wouldn't be abnormal as they developed in the same area, with Abraham himself having thought to have lived in the city of Ur, which was in Mesopotamia. The Greeks and Romans. The Greek and Roman creation myth is one of the best preserved creation myths that we have from the ancient world. Despite the distance between the Greeks and the Romans, they generally shared the same stories, as the religion of the ancient Romans was heavily influenced by the Greeks, and sometimes the only differences in the stories is the names. The following creation story is the one that was most commonly believed during that time period. In the beginning, there was chaos, but out the chaos emerged Gaia, who was the personification of the earth itself. As she slept, she gave birth to Uranus, who was the personification of the sky. Uranus showered Gaia with mist and rain, which created the earth's features. Then the deity Pontus sprouted out of Gaia, and he became the personification of the sea. And from the union of Pontus and Gaia came the creatures of the sea. From her union with Uranus came three monsters with 50 heads and 100 hands, three Cyclopses, and 12 Titans. Uranus, however, hated his children and feared they would overthrow him, so he imprisoned them somewhere inside of Gaia. Angry with Uranus, Gaia gave her only child willing to face Uranus, the Titan Kronos, a sickle, and with the sickle, Kronos castrated his father. With Uranus castrated, Kronos became the ruler of the cosmos and took his older sister Rhea as his queen. Together they ruled what is known as the Golden Age, and this is when humanity was created from clay by the Titan Prometheus to populate the earth. Prometheus is also the Titan who would later give humanity civilization, technology, and fire. This period is known as the Golden Age because under the rule of Kronos, there was no need for laws or rules, as everyone did the right thing, and there was no such thing as immorality. Kronos, however, was just as cruel as his father, and he kept his 100 hand and Cyclops siblings in prison. Once he learned that he was destined to be overthrown like Uranus before him, he began to eat his children until one day Rhea sought out Gaia for help to get Kronos back for his cruelty. Once Rhea was pregnant with her sixth child, Zeus, she gave birth on the island of Crete. Instead of giving the child to Kronos to be eaten, however, she wraps up a stone and gives it to him instead, which he swallows. Once Zeus is grown up, Gaia gives him an emetic to give to his father, which causes Kronos to vomit all his children out of his stomach. Once free from Kronos, they then free the Cyclops and 100 hand monsters. In gratitude, the Cyclops forged thunderbolts for Zeus, a trident for Poseidon, and the helm of darkness for Hades. With these new weapons, they overthrow Kronos, and the reign of the Olympian gods begins. It's important to note that humans were never perfect in this creation myth, as the Greek gods and titans were also imperfect and flawed as well. Also, as mentioned earlier, the beliefs of the Romans are very similar besides the names, and here are the differences. The Greek Gaia is the Roman Terra, the Greek Uranus is the Roman Caelus, the Greek Kronos is the Roman Saturn, the Greek Rhea is the Roman Ops, the Greek Zeus is the Roman Jupiter, the Greek Poseidon is the Roman Neptune, and the Greek Hades is the Roman Pluto. The Egyptians. The Egyptians actually had several different creation myths that vary between where in Egypt you live. Some of the stories are very similar, and the only thing different is the names of the gods, but some of the stories also differ greatly. Egyptian religion is also known for having many different gods that essentially perform the same function, and this is due to the many regional differences. The following creation story is from the city of Heliopolis and is one of the oldest and most popular versions. In the beginning, there was only Nu, the primordial watery abyss of chaos and creation. Out of these waters emerged a pyramid mound named Benben. Atum or Ra willed himself out of the mound and a lotus blossom, becoming the first god, the sun god, and the source of everything. Then, while resting on the mound, he spit out the gods Shu, who became the god of air, and Tefnut, who became the moisture goddess. Shu and Tefnut were tasked with creating law, order, and stability into light and dark. This order was called Ma'at and formed the eternal principles of life. Shu and Tefnut then had two children, Geb, the earth god, and Nut, the sky goddess. Geb and Nut then had four kids, Osiris, the god of fertility, Isis, the goddess of motherhood, Set, the goddess of chaos, and Nephthys, the goddess of mourning. These nine deities are known as the Unid, with the latter eight being seen as extensions of Atum himself. Osiris rules over the earth as the first pharaoh with his wife Isis, but his brother Set then grows jealous of Osiris and kills him and spreads his remains all over Egypt. Set's wife and sister Nephthys feel sorry for Isis as she wept endlessly for her deceased husband and decides to help Isis collect his remains long enough for them to have a child. Together they find all his pieces excluding his phallus, which was eaten by a fish. Nonetheless, Isis breathed life into Osiris and they magically conceive a child named Horus. Osiris then becomes the god and chief judge of the underworld. He is depicted as having green skin to signify rebirth or black skin to signify fertility. Being that Horus is the son of Osiris, he believes that it is his right to take the throne and he battles his uncle Set, ultimately defeating him. The conflict was never fully resolved, however, and this is an ongoing struggle, setting the tone for duality in Egyptian mythology. This all takes place near the city of Heliopolis, but it is important to note that the majority of the cities in Egypt thought that they were the original location of the Benben. In regards to the creation of mankind, there are many different versions in how humanity came to be. Throughout each story, however, the creation and role of humanity tends to be a minor one, and it is not heavily emphasized and expanded upon. These next two are some of the most popular and oldest ones, but again, there are many other ones that were also widely believed. One time, Shu and Tefnut got lost in the dark waters of Nu. Their father Atum missed them dearly and wanted them back, so he created an eye to find them. Eventually, Shu and Tefnut returns with the eye, and when Atum sees them, he is so happy that he cries tears of joy. As the tears hit the earth, mankind was born and tasked with upholding Ma'at and took care of the earth and worshipped the gods. The second one is that humanity was formed on a potter's wheel from clay and then placed in the mother's womb by the god Hanum. Hanum was one of the most important gods worshipped in Egypt, and he's also one of the oldest, as his worship predates dynastic Egypt. There's no definitive answer to where Hanum came from or how he became a god. The Egyptians did believe, however, that Hanum was the source of the river Nile and the controller of the seasonal floods in which Egyptian civilization depended on. Thank you.